I remember this. I remember waking up one day and realizing something felt different. Nothing huge had happened. There wasn't some sort of dramatic moment. Nobody called with life changing news. And the sky didn't open up with some kind of angelic choir. But something was different. And honestly, I didn't know whether to trust it or not. Part of me thought I was imagining things. Part of me thought I was just tired or stressed or burned out. But there was this quiet feeling that I couldn't explain, like I'd outgrown a room that I was still standing in. I remember trying to ignore it. I kept doing the same things, talking to the same people, following the same routines, trying to convince myself that if I just kept moving, the feeling would go away. And it didn't. In fact, it got louder. Not louder in some crazy dramatic way, just harder to ignore. And I think that's one of the strangest parts of change. Nobody really talks about it. We imagine change as something obvious, like a new job, a new house, a relationship ending, a big decision. Sometimes the biggest changes happen long before anything on the outside looks different. They happen quietly and slowly. And that's exactly where you are right now. And I know this because I remember being there. I remember feeling disconnected from things I thought I'd always love. Like places that used to feel comforting suddenly felt not so comforting. Conversations felt repetitive. Certain friendships felt heavier than they used to. Even my own habits started feeling unfamiliar. I thought something was wrong with me. I wondered if I'd become ungrateful or maybe I changed for the worse. Or I wondered if maybe I had just forgotten how to be happy. But I remember something else too. I remember what was actually happening. I was changing. Not necessarily because I wanted to, and not really because I had planned on doing it. Life was changing me little by little through disappointments, heartbreaks, through things that didn't work out, through prayers that felt unanswered, through waiting and loss, through surviving days I didn't think that I could survive. And the strange thing is, you don't really notice yourself changing while it's happening. You only notice what no longer fits. It's kind of like when you were a kid and you were growing, and then one day you just noticed your shoes didn't fit anymore. And you told your mom, Mom, my tennis shoes don't fit anymore. You didn't notice your feet were growing bigger, but they were. And it's kind of like that. When you're becoming someone new, you don't immediately know who that person is. You only know who you're not anymore. And that's uncomfortable. It's sort of like cleaning out a closet. You pull everything out, floor is a mess, there's chaos everywhere, nothing looks organized. And for a little while, it actually looks worse than it did before. And I remember living in that mess, wondering if I ruined everything, wondering why everyone else seemed so certain about their lives, wondering why I couldn't just go back to being who I had always been. I tried. I really tried. I tried shrinking myself. I tried pretending things didn't bother me. I tried keeping the peace. I tried staying where I had already outgrown. I had tried carrying relationships that both people should have been carrying. I even tried saying yes when I really wanted to say no. I tried staying quiet. I tried settling. But every time that feeling came back, that quiet little voice, that one that whispered, "This isn't you anymore." I hated that voice for a while because listening to it meant admitting something. It meant admitting that I was unhappy. It meant admitting that I was tired. It meant admitting I'd been holding on to people and places and versions of myself because they were just comfortable and familiar, not because they were good for me. I know how scary that realization is because once you see something, you can't unsee it. Once you have clarity, you can't go back. Once you realize a friendship has changed, you can't pretend that it hasn't. Once you realize you've outgrown a dream, you can't force yourself to want it again. Once you realize you've been settling, your heart won't let you stay comfortable for very long. And I know it's exhausting. I know you've probably wondered why everything feels so emotional lately. Why little things might be making you cry. Why you're more tired. Why you're more restless. Why you're thinking about old memories. Why you've been questioning things that you've never questioned before. I remember all of that. I thought I was falling apart, but I wasn't. I was just paying attention. And honestly, I wish someone had told us that sooner. I wish someone had sat us down and said, "You're not losing yourself. You are meeting yourself." And I know that sounds a little impossible right now because when you're standing in the middle of change, it doesn't feel beautiful. It feels confusing. You miss people who don't miss you. You miss old versions of yourself. You miss the certainty that you used to have, even if that certainty wasn't making you happy. There's a little comfort in a familiar pain. That's another thing that nobody really tells you. Sometimes we stay in situations because at least we know how they'll hurt us. We're used to it. We feel comfortable there. And the unknown feels scarier. But I need to tell you something. I remember what happened next. Not all the details, and I won't tell you exactly how your life is going to turn out because that's not the point. The point is we made it. We survived the uncertainty. We survived the waiting and the questions. We survived the nights where we wondered if we had made a mistake. We survived the days where we felt behind. We survived losing people. We survived changing our minds. We survived disappointing others. And we survived disappointing ourselves. And somehow we became softer and kinder. And that surprised me because I thought surviving would make us hard, kind of like hardening our hearts. I thought we'd stop trusting people. I thought we would build walls. I thought we'd become cynical. Instead, we became softer and kinder. We learned that everyone is carrying something. We learned that people leave and people stay. We learned that healing isn't a straight line. We learned that life doesn't have to look perfect to be good. We learned to laugh again. We learned to rest. We learned to stop apologizing for taking up space. We learned that peace feels different than excitement. Peace is quieter, and you almost miss it if you're not paying attention. And I think that's why I'm here, because I remember missing it. Kept looking for the big fireworks, the signs, the huge moments, proof that my life was changing. I didn't realize that the proof was already there. The proof was that I was becoming more honest. Proof was that I was setting boundaries. The proof was that I was asking harder questions. Proof was that I was choosing myself in many different little ways. The shift wasn't coming, the shift had already begun. And maybe that's why you found this video today. Not really because it's fate, not necessarily because the universe arranged some coincidence, but maybe because part of you already knew. Maybe you've been waiting for someone to say, "I see it too. I see how hard you are trying. I see how tired you are. I see the grief that you're carrying that nobody else sees. I see the quiet decisions you're making. I see the strength that it takes to keep showing up. And I see the change that's happening, even if nobody does. I know you're scared. I know you're wondering what's next. I know you're worried that you're making the wrong choice. I remember all of those fears, but I remember something bigger. I remember that every version of us that came after this moment was grateful that we didn't quit here. Grateful that we kept going. Grateful that we trusted ourselves a little bit more. Grateful that we stopped waiting for permission. Grateful that we believed that this uncomfortable season wasn't the end of our story. And I know that you can't see the whole picture yet, and you're not supposed to. You only have to take care of today's version of you. So drink your water, take a walk, answer that text, or maybe ignore and block. Rest when you're tired. Cry if you need to. Laugh when you can. Ask for help. Stay curious. Keep going. And all of those things, that's enough. It was always enough. And before I go, there's one thing that I want you to remember. The shift you're feeling is real. You're not imagining it. You're not broken. You're not failing. You're not falling behind. You are growing. You may be growing quietly. You may be growing slowly, but you're growing. And you're growing in ways that you can't fully see yet. And I know because I remember this season. I remember the fear, the waiting, the loneliness. I remember wondering if everything was changing. And I remember the day that I looked back and realized it was. It really was. And one day you'll remember this version of yourself too. You'll remember how hard you tried, how much you carried, how brave you were without even realizing it. And I think you'll wish you could sit down beside yourself for just a few minutes just to tell them, I know you'll make it. I remember, and you're going to be okay. Until next time, stay magnetic, friends.